Good afternoon, folks. We are up and running. So let me flip over to the drawing layout and we will go ahead and get started. Alright, I got the BGM turned on. Once it's going, let me know if I need to turn it up or down. It should be in the background, running through the playlist, which, on topic, has the latest music release from yesterday, BGM Collection 3.0, which is actually this first track that's playing now, Bass Bass, comes from the latest music release. So if you haven't checked that out, the compilation videos on YouTube. I see Red Dragon is here. What's up, Red Dragon? How are you doing this afternoon for me? Hope your day's going well. Alright, so what are we doing today? We are returning to creature studies today. Last time, was a couple weeks ago when I was streaming, we did a character study, worked on finishing a render for an OC type character that I've mean to finish for a while. So at least we got one thing done. Today, I have some ideas for some creature concepts that I might be able to use in a future project. And so I have an idea of what I want to start sketching out. So it's kind of more of an experiment and mess around with ideas type of exercise like we did before. So what I'm going to do is sketch out a base primary for this idea that I have and mess around with the ideas, and then we'll look at some options with the rendering pose and everything, and then or the sketch pose primary, and we'll see about doing a full render. Kind of more of a brainstorming exercise, something I've been wanting to sketch out for a while and just haven't had time. Actually, before I even get this far, I want to sketch out a rough pose first, and then I'll work on the details. We'll do it in simple shapes, trying to block in a pose. That'll allow me to get the details more accurate once I actually get there. Alright, we're gonna go for kind of a more hunched over pose. Maybe we'll do the legs a little bit shorter. I think the upper body and upper arms are going to be bigger than the legs. Put the shoulders about here. Just like we've done on previous ones, I'm gonna maybe have to do this more than once, or at least take this sketch and rough the details in more than once. I usually start with simple shapes to get the overall pose and positioning for whatever it is I'm drawing down, and then from there I'll do another pass at adding in some detail, adding in some other things that I'm actually trying to render out, and then once I'm happy with that, then I'll look at actually inking the line art, adding color and all the other stuff. We have another arm coming out here like this. And this thing will have like a sort of medium length tail, and I'll figure out where it's gonna go, which direction, but I'll put it here for now in the sketch primary. Hey, Iconic is here. What's up, Iconic? Welcome to the drawing stream. How's your day going? It is Wednesday. Was it Wednesday? It is Wednesday. So we are at the middle of the week in so-called hump day as the weekend draws ever closer. Iconic says it's going well, thanks. How are you? Doing all right. Another busy day of work. I got some interesting work news that may or may not make my life more difficult later, but overall I can't complain. At least it's not like really stressful at the moment. Can't quite figure out what direction I want the head pointed, so I'm just going to leave it there and might have to rotate things around. Iconic says, wishing you the best with that. If you're talking about the job stuff, that'll be fine. As long as the paychecks keep showing up. That's all that really matters. It is incredibly warm where I'm at today. Thankfully, I'm not in the parts of the country that are getting totally blasted, but where I live, it's supposed to peak at like 93 degrees, which is pretty decently hot. And I don't have air conditioning in my house. I do have a unit here in my room that's one of those freestanding ones I've talked about before, but it's loud. I think you'd be able to hear it if I turned it on. And so while I'm streaming, I don't have it on, so it is warm. It's like a sauna in my room. And it's not a big deal, but I'm listening to my computer, make sure it doesn't start running too hot. That's why it's good I'm probably not streaming any intensive games today, because my graphics card heats my room as well. But where I live, it's not common to find places that have like built-in central air. But when it gets hot, it gets hot. I'm just glad we're staying out of the triple digits. Certain parts of the country are just getting just scorched with heat waves, you know, like the middle and south of the country. All right, let me zoom out a little bit. I'll make it a bit easier to sketch in details. Okay, I think that'll work for a first pass. Now I can look at roughing in some specifics. Iconic says, I like whatever you're drawing. Well, we're doing some idea brainstorming today for creature concept that hopefully I'll be able to use on a future project. It'll probably become a bit more obvious what it is when I start sketching in the details, but we'll see how it reads. Now that the BGM Collection 3.0 is out, I could start thinking about future projects and things coming up later in the year. The next thing I've got my sights on, which you folks will probably be hearing me talk about in September, maybe the middle of September when I get back from Extra Life. But there'll be a teaser coming out for Halloween. That is the next big project. And I've talked a little bit about Halloween, like on the jam streams and whatnot, but I am definitely looking forward to that release. There's a lot of cool stuff in the works. I think I mentioned before that I'm collaborating with 2 different artists, one for the album art and one for track art like we did last year. And the way things are shaping up looks really cool. So be looking forward to talking more about that once we get closer to October. It's hard to believe we're almost in September. Okay, let's start adding in some detail to the limbs. Iconic says, let me do some creative stuff too to be in solidarity with you. What kind of creative stuff do you work on, Iconic? Maybe you've talked about it and I've forgotten. If so, I apologize. But as far as creative type things, what do you like to make? I've seen you retweet a lot of like commissions and OC stuff that you've had made, but as far as things you actively create, I don't know if you've ever talked about it. Again, if you have, I've forgotten because I have a bad memory. But I'm always curious to hear what types of things other people are working on for their projects. It's funny because prior to meeting the Toxicure affiliated folks, I didn't really know any other fellow artists. Most of the people I know outside of content are kind of more regular normie people. They don't work in streaming or in art, so I didn't actually know any fellow artists. Icon says, all good. Usually I write fan fiction for my OC, but recently I've been trying to write something original as of late, and I'm slowly but surely figuring stuff out. Oh, that's cool. So like an original work of fiction. What kind of style or genre are you writing in? Is this like an action, like suspense? Like what's your kind of end goal as far as the stuff you're writing? You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but again, as a writer myself, I'm always curious what people are working on. Comic says a comedic villain of the week thing. So are you talking like an episodic story featuring like a featured antagonist, kind of like you'd see in a show, or are you looking at kind of establishing like a universe? Ah, I see, like a manga light novel. That's cool. I understand the kind of villain of the week thing if you're going for something that'd be kind of like serialized or episodic. That's cool. I've written stuff that's designed to be a similar style. Something that I think if it was adapted into any sort of visual format, it definitely would be like a manga type format. I really need to get back and spend more time on my writing projects. There's just not enough time in the day. Might have to pull up some references at some point. Make sure I'm capturing all the design elements. Let's go ahead and save this. Iconic says, you ever want to read what I got so far? I wouldn't mind sending it to you and hearing your thoughts. Oh, sure. Or feel free to DM me or send me a link to what you've got. And I'm not a professional editor by trade, but a lot of what I do in my 9 to 5 involves editing of written stuff. It's not for fiction or novelization. It's a slightly more specific type of work, but I have to review a lot of writing and review it for consistency, accuracy of grammar, punctuation, but also certain types of technical content. So yeah, feel free to send me stuff if you want feedback on like narrative flow. I'm not a professional, but I kind of do some of that for my job, so it's all good. I see. Looking at Discord, Wazzy saw the fan art I made for her birthday. That was fun. That idea came to me yesterday, and so I was scrambling to get it all rendered out and done so I could send it to her today. I'll do this. This third one will go back here. Kong says, "Thank you, man. Any help is appreciated." Oh, no worries. I always like looking and seeing what kind of creative projects people are up to. All right. Let me pull up. I'm going to pull up a reference so I can look at specifying some of the design elements here. And you folks that are watching, does it seem apparent what I'm drawing, or at least roughly an idea of what I'm drawing here? If it's not clear, then it means I'm probably not doing my job. Cox says, "I'll DM you the Google Doc. I'd pitch you the concept if I wasn't scared a lurker would steal it." Nah, you're better off sending it to me in DMs, man. Especially since this is going to be part of the archives. You can go ahead and forward it to me. That way, your work's not out in the open. I hear you there. But yeah, you guys get the reference before I pull up the actual reference. Might be hard since there's no color assignment. McConaughey says some sort of eldritch beast. That's definitely the inspiration for like the style, but this is a reference to a specific character. Let me do this. I'll just do it on screen. I'll do it. You folks will probably be able to see me pull it up, and then it should make sense. I just can't remember where I put the reference. It's here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy it out. And I'm going to put it on its own layer here. There we go. It's Tenpo. Tenpo is going to be going through some character development, in quotes, coming up, especially with Halloween. But this is supposed to be a monster form for Tenpo. And again, I don't have anything I'm readily planning on using this for, but I want to have this kind of design stock. That way, if I need it for a future project, I can use it. I think we'll do more than one iteration of this, but taking the idea of, again, my mascot character, one of my two mascot characters, Tenpo, and kind of like Iconic said, building on the idea of an eldritch or otherworldly type of creature is the idea. And so if we think about it from a design element perspective, obviously instead of just being a blob with little flappy arms, this is more of a fleshed out creature. And I kind of purposed the hook-shaped note tail that Tenpo's got, these spikes on his back, and tried to make the actual tail look more kind of bladed and sharp. And so here's the exercise for today. I really racked my brain for something to do for a creature study. The idea today is to come up with some Tenpo creatures. They're not all going to be like this sort of quadrupedal look like this. They might get a little more abstract. The idea is to kick around some ideas and see what we can come up with as far as a potential design used for something later. And so I think I'd rather do that and work on creating these sketched out ideas that I can ink and color, offline, as opposed to doing one, rendering it from start to finish, putting all the color and all that. I'd rather get more ideas than finished products. And so that's the goal for today. And we'll keep the reference here. I'll put it up in the corner. That way we know what we're working with. So we can hide you. And you never know, it could be something that we can repurpose into like a music release. That's probably what I'd use it for, like a cover art thing or some sort of themed piece of art that I can work into content. Iconic says, sent you the thing to read on your own time. Thanks again. Oh, no worries. I see your message. I just haven't read it yet. I will take a look at it off stream, and it might take me a little bit to through the whole thing, depending on how long it is. But I can definitely give you some feedback. I'll be constructive. I'm not going to crap all over your work, because one, that's rude, and two, I think feedback should always be constructive. As far as the stuff I've written, I'll think about that since you offered Iconic. The stuff I've written requires a bit of explanation to explain the lore in the universe, and none of my stories are done, with the exception of a couple that are not part of the main progression. And so, I don't know. Maybe I'll take you up on that later. We'll see. Okay, so we're calling this 1. And we'll save our progress. And let's work on another one. I'm thinking for an idea that's a bigger departure from what I just drew. What if we did like plant tentacle monster? I gotta think a little bit for some ideas on how to do that. But again, we have the reference in the corner, so this will make it a little bit easier as far as keeping the specific design elements. But I'm gonna try and sketch out something. I'll do it by shape first. So let's say we did something getting plant-like. Thinking like a main vine connecting. This would be the head here. Then have like a main plant body. I'm trying to think of how to incorporate the hook tail. I'm thinking a root system. So what if we had kind of sharp foliage tip lips that are, or leaves, not lips, leaves that are encompassing like kind of like a blossom almost. I guess this is more fleshed out sketch than just pose primary, which is fine. That doesn't really matter. We can add the details. protect the head. I know it's a little bit hard to make out details, so I'll kind of clean it up as we go for the sketch here. Icon says maybe the body's shaped like the note. You get a little bit of that from the way I've done sort of like the long vine on the neck. But I think we can definitely build on the idea of the kind of, at least the hook part of the note on the part below the main kind of bulb there. Might have to clean up parts of this mouth here. It's a little bit unclear what it looks like. And I could kind of see the actual texturing on the vine, at least the neck part here, kind of like a twisted, gnarled texture. Something that looks like it's really kind of corded, almost like a corded vine, as opposed to something that's just untextured. I got an idea. Let's see if this is something feasible or a little too extra. What I foresee is like these sort of petals here, which look sharp, almost like blades, would normally fold together to protect the head when it's sleeping or if it needs to conceal itself. Kind of like a bud that's about to bloom. But in keeping with the sort of horror and like eldritch adjacent type things, I like the idea that there's eyes on the inside. If we want to go for maximum unsettling factor, we put some irises. A little bit hard to see there, but we have them all kind of looking in different directions. It could even be lore-wise that the round eyes you see on the sort of head here in quotes are false eyes, something to distract the potential predator or enemy, and the real eyes are the ones you see here on all the petals, which is why you see no pupils or irises on these. They look like just kind of round spheres, kind of like predatory plants have things that lure in prey, like bugs. Like maybe these are meant to look like fruit or something that an animal or potential prey would want to eat, and the actual optic organs are here. Maybe if we were going to do color, we have kind of like highlight tips on the petals here. Maybe they'd be a bright kind of venomous color. All right, now let's focus on the lower part. Here's what I was kind of thinking for the part of the tail, kind of incorporate. It's not supposed to be the legs, so I need to be a little bit careful with how I sort of represent this here. But the root system should look sharp, kind of like a nettle almost, as opposed to something that looks soft or flexible like this. I'm thinking something more rigid, sharp. And maybe this thing is mobile. I like the idea that it doesn't just sit rooted to the ground. It can also get up and move itself around, which is even more horrifying when you think about it. What I'll do is I'll kind of rough in the specifics and then try and define these a little bit better, especially on these petals. I'm thinking, trying to decide just based on the sketch phase here, if we want the root system with these kind of sharp bladed like tendrils to have a similar texture as the vine here on the neck, or if we'd want them to be different, like if we add in some lines here. I think it works okay. Problem is, the more you add texture wise, the more kind of clustered and hard to discern the whole thing is, since there's all these lines and tendrils. If we make them all textured, it's going to be really kind of confusing to look at. So I almost think just having them be kind of like single line textured, that way we can make them look more like they're sharp, would probably be better than adding a kind of twisting corded texture like up here. Because I don't think, well, maybe they would be the same color. That's another thing to think about. Would they be the same color as the neck, or would they be different? Okay. I think this one has potential. Let's zoom out a little bit and see what we've created. Again, let me try and clean up the lines here on the mouth. And then we'll take inventory here. I think this is an interesting idea. Definitely has a different vibe and sort of style and feel than the last one. I do like, I'll put another one here. I do like plant creatures. I think the idea of plant creatures is a really neat concept and you can do a lot of stuff with. Let's see, missing any real design elements? Not really. The thing that's nice about Tenpo's base design up here, which is, again, this is one Plups drew. It's very simple. I wanted a simple shape mascot that would be recognizable and not too difficult to draw on model. As a result, I do get people ask me every once in a while if Tenpo is supposed to be an automaton, and that wasn't the inspiration for his design. I started with the idea of like a musical note shape, and then add the other parts of the kind of design. He wasn't modeled after an automaton. But I do get that question every once in a while, which is fair. Yeah, exactly. Iconic says, simple but effective. Something that you can reproduce pretty easily and is recognizable. The Space Bee mascot, Echo, is kind of like the community mascot. That one is meant to be a little bit more detailed and complex. But as far as Tenpo goes, I think it's pretty effective. It does remind me, I can mention this now. I have no idea on an ETA, but since it's something I'm working on, I can mention it here. I started working on a merch shop. Finally, I know people have asked me about it for well over a year, almost 2 years now. But I am actively working on building a merch shop. I got some really good recommendations from Bits. I'm talking to Bits. And so I'm hoping to have the first iteration of things for a merch store launched before the end of the calendar. If things work out by November, because I'm gonna be out for a stretch for like a week in the middle of November, but there will be something live, and I don't know how many products I have on there. That's what I'm actively developing right now, but I'll talk more about it when it gets close. But just so you folks know, it's kind of like a teaser bit of information. Finally establishing a merch shop. And I've got some designs that are corresponding to some projects that I've done before. That'll probably be the first wave of stuff on there. But things like shirts and other types of apparel products is what I'm looking at launching first. Stickers. In fact, I was just talking to Plups earlier, asking them about the art they did for the Neon Night Lounge album, which is one of my favorites. I asked if they'd be comfortable with me putting the album art on a shirt. So that's one of the first ones that I've been developing. It's the cover art without my logo to clutter it up. Just the rendered cover art of the Neon Night Lounge on a shirt. Very simple, but I think the design translates pretty well to like a shirt. I need to figure out what I want to do with the one Banani did for future days, far future days. That one, the way it's designed, is a little bit tougher to translate to a shirt, but I'm going to try and see if I can do something with it. But I think it'd be cool to have a shirt with the album art for different releases. So yeah, that's something that I'm working on when I have time, and I'll probably post more about it on the Discord and on Twitter when it goes live. So that's exciting. Might actually accomplish one of my New Year's resolutions, was to get that done this year. Okay, let's go ahead and save our work. Be quite a shame to lose all that progress. So this is concept 2 for Tempo Creature. A sort of horror adjacent themed plant. And I think this one's interesting. Definitely has a different sort of feel than the last one. Now, if I could draw scenes and backgrounds, then it'd be perfect for something like an album cover or something else. But I really suck at drawing backgrounds. In fact, I can't draw backgrounds to save my life, which is why I usually work with other people and stuff like that. I'll call this number 2. And we have another layer ready to go. So now we can move on to a third concept. So let's pull the floor for people hanging out in chat. We did a sort of, well, to recap, we did kind of a quadrupedal creature, like a beast type design. We did a plant one. What's another idea for how to adapt, again, a reference up here into some sort of monster design, like I've done on jam streams and whatnot. I'll open up the floor for suggestions, and then we can see how to develop that idea into a full-blown concept. I was thinking bug. If we had like beast type, plant type, maybe like a bug. Iconic says maybe like a sea creature of some sort. Like an anglerfish. Ooh, that's a really good idea. I like anglerfish. Anglerfish are horrifying creatures. Yeah, alright. Bet, let's do that. I already think of how I would roughly shape the body too. Fortunately, anglerfish have a really distinct and simple design. So I think we could take that design and really sort of twist it around and make it interesting. Let's go... I was thinking we could go side profile facing this way. Yeah, let's do that to start. It'll allow us to show off more of the design elements. For this one, I'm thinking multiple eyes. And maybe more of kind of like a shelled texture on the actual body. You guys know what the coelacanth is? That kind of ancient looking fish that has a kind of like, not armor plated, but it's got kind of rough texture to its body as opposed to regular soft scales. Okay, I think I got some ideas for how to approach this. Take some pages out of the book from like a lionfish. It has those really sharp kind of quilled fins. Do you know those are considered an invasive species? Because they're so destructive to environments where they live, lionfish are basically kill on sight. They look really cool. Apparently they're very destructive to the environments they live in. Okay, I think I'm going to take the sort of hook tail from over here. I can't see that. Over here. And I'm going to purpose that into the dorsal fin on the back. Before you do that, we need to give this thing some gnarly teeth. What if we had two more, or not too much, too many teeth? Like an unreasonable amount of teeth, kind of like a shark in rows. And if this thing bites you, it's going to really suck. Maybe we'll have the fins laying flat along the body. That way it doesn't look like a big umbrella mane type thing. Oh, we could even go a little bit longer on the body. Maybe something... How do we feel about combining like an anglerfish and an eel? I swear I've drawn something like this before. Kind of walk me through this here, or walk with me through this here. If we did something like this, what I would do is I would add the kind of hooked dorsal fin. Maybe it's a little bit too high. Going along the back. And going down here. I don't like it. I like the idea of something a bit more compact, like an original anglerfish. I think I can work with that a little bit better. So if we kind of define where the tail and the body would end, probably about there. I think I might need to actually scale down the size of the, I don't know what kind of pectoral? Whatever you call that. I think it's taking up too much space. What I'm going to do is I want to try and roughen the rest of the body, and then I'll do that one last. That way I know how much space I need. put kind of some texture. It goes along like this. I kind of foresee this creature being like you'd see in an anglerfish, a deep sea creature, something found in the depths where no man dare tread. And so to that end, it would have like bioluminescence on it. So these things that I'm putting on here would be like organs or something that would light up. All right, let's center this a little bit more. Kind of like the idea of the same bioluminescence on the tail, on the actual tail fin. So that when it swims, I can't really convey this in a still image, but when the tail is going, back and forth in these different directions, when the bioluminescence glows, it creates kind of like the light tracks you see on, they do it in like motorbikes and like animation, where you can see like the streaks going through the night. So there'd be a similar effect when this thing's moving its tail. So you see these kind of like trails moving in the darkness. Okay, now we do the dorsal fin. I haven't forgot about the lanternfish or anglerfish lure thing. That's gonna go right here. Do that last. Now let's see how this go. Maybe having a ragged edge lends itself a little bit less like a dorsal fin. Yeah, that looks better. I like to think that these are venomous tips, kind of like against a lionfish. Maybe they're different color. Put the same glowing bits on the fin too to keep consistent. All right, let's see how we do this. Might need to be a little longer, Yeah, we'll extend it out a little bit longer. We go to about here. Ideally, we'd want this thing for predatory purposes to be kind of close to the jaws to lure something in. Put some joints on the fins here, kind of show them articulated. All right, let's zoom out and take a look. That is a really interesting concept. This is a good idea, Iconic. It's a really fun concept to kind of mess around with and flesh out into something horrific. So, good call there. All right, let's go ahead and save this. I'm just putting some texturing along the body here as it leads to the tail. And I don't know if that'd be a different color or whatnot. I kind of like the idea that the face, like this part right here, would be the kind of shell texture I talked about before. And then the rest of the body would be kind of more like scales, maybe multicolored. Yeah, it's a cool design. I don't really draw a lot of fish, but anglerfish are so horrific. I think it's perfect for what we're looking at here. You know how the mating cycle works for like deep sea anglerfish, Iconic? That's how I first kind of heard about them on the internet, is reading True Facts. I think Zay Frank was one I saw. I saw some articles. But do you know how the mating cycle works for anglerfish? It is pretty wild. I just know I don't. Well, how would you like to get your horrific nature fact of the day from old Uncle Raku? So I don't know if this is every single species of anglerfish, but deep sea anglerfish is the one I heard about and is the most kind of striking. So the way the sexual dimorphism works for that species that we're talking about, the females are the ones that look like this, with like the big bodies, like the mouth full of teeth, and like the lure, and they're very terrifying looking. The males look like this. This is a real crude approximation. But the males more or less look like this. They are small. they're a lot smaller. This isn't a scale comparison of the male size of the female, but the male is much smaller than the female. And so what happens is when it becomes mating season, the male will find a suitable female and bite her. Like bite and latch on somewhere on her body. And then once the male does that, there is a chemical reaction from the male that causes his mouth to fuse onto the female, and he basically becomes part of her body, and his whole body is sort of assimilated until it's just gonads attached to the female that the female can use to reproduce whenever she wants. And so if you think about it like the ultimate level of simpage in nature, the male basically just becomes parasitized with the female, and then that's his life. His life more or less ends, and he just becomes an extension of the female. It is horrific. But cheaper than a dinner date. Heyo. But it is interesting. So there's your interesting fact about deep sea anglerfish. When you think your dating life is bad, could be worse. You could be a male anglerfish. We'll leave that guy there as a nod to the horrible fate. Hikong says, "Oh wow, that is horrifying." It's interesting. Okay, go ahead and save this. Let's do another one. So 3 concepts. I'm actually cranking through these a little bit faster than I expected, just because I guess it doesn't take long to sketch out ideas as opposed to full renders. So for this one, let's go with the bug idea, but somebody give me a suggestion for a type of bug. It could be an insect, it could be an arachnid, but something that's going to lend itself well to taking Tenpo's design and adapting it to something terrifying and horrible. Comic says maybe a caterpillar or spider. Caterpillar could be interesting, but it implies a larval form. So if I did that, I'd have to draw like an adult form of something, which that could be an interesting idea, because that gives us 3 stages of life to work on, like caterpillar phase, larval phase, pupa phase, which would be like the cocoon, and then the final phase, which is some sort of winged insect final form. So maybe we could take that idea and then sort of simplify. So I'm not working on this for 3 hours, but we simplify the idea while taking the design concepts. Yeah, let's do that. That's kind of a different direction than I was originally thinking. But that's good. That's going to force me to be creative here. So for a larva, let's do kind of a segmented body. This one will be a little bit more simple than the last one. I say that, nothing I do is ever simple. I already know. the musical note things are going to be kind of adapted here. This is going to look kind of like a centipede. Iconics is what we're thinking at first. I was actually thinking of something like a centipede, or maybe a scorpion, or like a whip scorpion, which looks a little bit different from your garden variety scorpions. But I like the idea of having to adapt a multiple stage life cycle thing and come up with through lines for all of them. So this is going to probably take some ideas from all of those and put them together. So let's do this rather than make it be like completely like a centipede. Everything up to here will be kind of like grabby bits, arms for these, and then after that it's going to be kind of more like legs, like you'd actually see on a caterpillar. Now for the face, let's do 3/4 again. I think we go large eyes, like you'd see on a bug. And I was thinking kind of like these mandible looking things, taking, I can't see that again, taking this part of the jaws and making the mandibles. So the probably wouldn't be that apparent until it's colored, but the coloring would be that kind of sand colored part of Tenpo's lower jaw. Let's see, do caterpillars have antenna? They normally have antenna? Well, I guess it doesn't matter. We could give antenna if we wanted. Maybe do short antenna like that. And maybe do spikes on top. I don't know. Is that too Weedle-like? I don't want to rip off Pokemon. What if we made them hooked? I got some ideas for how to sort of texture the rest of these body segments. But we could do some cool stuff with coloring. Taking the coloring and creating some kind of like venomous patterns like you see on some of those caterpillars out in nature. Hey, Ladybug's here. I almost didn't see your chat because your name is the same color as Iconics. But you have an icon, so I did see you. Welcome to the stream, Ladybug. Hope your day is going well. What we're doing today on the creature study is we are taking, to kind of backtrack a little bit. I don't know what you saw us working on before, if anything. If you just jumped on, I'll do a quick recap just so it's clear what we're doing. We are taking my mascot here in the upper corner, Tenpo, and we are adapting his design into creature concepts. Things to be potentially used in future projects. And we're brainstorming ideas for adapting that sort of creature concept with Tenpo. And so to recap, this one we're working on here is like a sequence of bugs. But we started with a kind of feral beast type creature. I may need to scale this up. I end up doing something with it. And so again, taking this idea of a little kind of squirt dude with little stumpy arms and the hooked tail, and fleshing that out into something more bestial, feral. We went for the plant route, like a type of Eldritch Horror-ish inspired plant sketch concept here, with like the flower head and petals around the body and all these root-like legs. The last one we did after that is a deep sea horror. This is a design based on an anglerfish. Kind of a bunch of things, but like an anglerfish and like a lionfish a little bit. Something you would find at the depths, in the abyss. And then we're now working on bugs. So like a larval phase, a pupa phase, and then an adult phase. Okay, well, I'm sketching out some ideas for additional design elements on the larval phase here. I guess I'd talk a little bit, like I usually do on these drawing streams, about content plans and things that I'm mapping out going forward. That way, in case people are wondering what I'm up to and what things are going to look like here on the channel going in the near future, this is kind of like an update for what I'm doing. And so we're here at, boy, middle of August already. I can't believe we're in the middle of August. That's nuts to me. But the streams will continue on their regular schedule sort of layout this week and next week and the week after. The last week of August is when things are going to switch up slightly, and that's because I'm going to be traveling the last week of August to the far off remote area of Canada land for the Extra Life event. And I've mentioned this, I'm going to try and mention this at least once a stream if I don't forget, just so people have, awareness. In fact, we can do this. Hopefully my alert is still working. If we do !EL, then it links to the Team Toxicure Extra Life charity event. And so the last week of the month is going to be different because I'll be over in Canada on the event that weekend, and then I'll be in Canada for a week after that, touring the area with Wazzy and company. In between now and then, so schedule this week, we have this stream today. We've got Into the Breach again tomorrow. We'll be taking the second look at the turn-based strategy mech game, which is a lot of fun, by the way. I've been spending time playing that offline, and I've unlocked some cool stuff I can show you folks tomorrow. But that game's awesome. A lot of fun. Sunday, we have the last jam stream of the month. And we'll be doing kind of a lot of the same brainstorming, experimenting with ideas as we've done in the past. And then the following week is going to be interesting. So next week, wow, what's Monday? Monday is the 21st. So the last full week before I depart the following week, last week of the month, for the charity event. I need to figure out my schedule. It's too early to tell. It's not even the end of this week yet. But next week is big because Armored Core 6 comes out next week. Comes out on Friday, the 25th. I will not be streaming that Friday, because usually I still have to work, so I don't normally stream on Fridays anyway. But we will most likely look at Armored Core on stream. Tentatively, I'm looking at Saturday. What I want to do is get into the game, get kind of set up, and play through a little bit. We'll see, and then actually jump in with everybody to show off on stream the next day. And so that's going to be pretty big because, again, you guys have probably heard me talk about it too much at this point, but I'm very much looking forward to Armored Core 6. It's probably my most anticipated game this year. And we've done a lot of stuff with Armored Core here on the channel. We played For Answer. Matt and I played through Armored Core 3 on PS2 in kind of preparation for the new game that's coming out. And then that's also why I've been kind of trying to mix in mecha-related content in the meantime. And I think early next week we'll look at one other project or game before Armored Core comes out. But that's going to be fun. You folks are probably going to get sick of Armored Core 6, but I plan on streaming a decent amount here on the channel for a while. And a lot of people will. But that should be fun. So, barring any system-related problems or anything like that, we should jump into Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon at the end of next week. Okay. So here we have a caterpillar larval form of Tenpo. Pretty straightforward. It's not too busy. Got the kind of round segmented body and the sharp legs. Now for the cocoon, that's going to be interesting. I had a couple ideas for this. My initial thought was to take the music shape, rough music shape, and build that out into something. This one's probably not going to be as complicated as any of the other ones because it's just a cocoon. But one thing that we can do to kind of make it noteworthy and unique is we mess around with the texturing, the kind of lines and the patterning that's on the surface. And just like here, we have these highlight organ things. I'm thinking we would put that kind of sporadically throughout the surface of the cocoon. Maybe they would glow, or there'd be some sort of kind of lit up type thing. I don't think it'd be suspended from like a branch or from like the ceiling of something. You could probably workshop that concept a little bit, but because it's just a cocoon, I don't think it needs to be too complicated. So we start here, we go here. Now the adult form I've been thinking about since this idea first came up. Not really sure where to start on the adult form. Obviously it's going to be like some sort of butterfly or moth. And I honestly don't know genetically what the difference is between butterflies and moths. I think they start their life cycles slightly differently. But if you ask me, I'm not an entomologist, so if you ask me, like, what's the difference between how something ends up as a butterfly versus a moth, I couldn't tell you. But what if we sketch out sort of the body? And then add in the details. Again, trying to keep the horror element. Or maybe do mandibles. I think something like mandibles might work for this. Change the shape of the head a little bit. Don't draw a lot of bugs. It's not a lot of like butterfly type bugs. I think some moths have those kind of furry, like fuzzy looking antennae. I don't think butterflies have that. I think butterflies have like the regular, like little dealy bopper antennas. I don't know what they're called. I think that's part of the difference. I think someone knows more about bugs than I do could probably correct me if I'm wrong. Now for the body, I'm trying to think of the best way to do the limbs. I might have to do more than one version of this depending on how pleased I am with the results. And man, I might have to scale that down. I'm going to run out of room. Let's do that. We'll shrink it down a little bit. Whoop. That way I have more room to sort of draw the wings. That's probably good enough. I don't know what these trailing bits here are called, but I know it's a lot of butterflies and moths, they have that. I know it's probably got some sort of scientific name, but I don't know what it is. But one idea I had for this, like this particular winged form, would be to put some sort of really intricate pattern. I don't know what that pattern would look like. Like maybe it's got kind of like a runic pattern or something on it. That's not a very good approximation of that. But some sort of pattern on the wings in addition to I don't know if these would be marks or actual organs inset in the wings, but to keep the kind of horror element as a through line for all these, in addition to the patterning, there would be at least 2 of these per wing, maybe 2 on the upper, 2 on the lower, so that the idea is when this thing opens its wings, it makes itself look like a face, just like you see in nature, where the patterning on things like bugs or whatnot, it's meant to scare off predators. Similar idea, although if you throw in the horror element, maybe it steals your soul when it opens up its wings. I don't know. Hadn't thought that far ahead. Like maybe the texturing on the wings itself is a little bit more minimal to give more attention to these things that are looking at you. And down here, maybe these ones are facing up to this direction. It's your general horror strategy. Want to make it look more otherworldly or horrific? Just add too many eyes. Oh, we got to hydrate from Iconic. I'll save too. Wouldn't want to lose all my progress. I'll kind of add the texturing here. This would be real approximations that I'd have to rough in and get to be a bit more consistent if I was going to actually ink this whole thing out. Even add it's kind of like vein textured lines too. We really want to make it look terrible. I'll do the same over here. All right, let's zoom out a little bit and take stock of what we've created here. This one was an interesting experiment. Kind of went places I wasn't expecting. All right, let's take a look. Obviously, this is not really to scale. I just had to kind of cram everything into one to make sure I didn't run out of space to actually draw. But what we have here is 3 stages of some sort of cursed insect creature based on, again, our boy Tenpo here. So the first stage we have caterpillar right here. Pretty simple. I think we could do a lot with coloring and patterning to make it accurate, non-model to Tenpo's red color scheme. Maybe add some other sort of, again, vibrant, venomous colors. From there, we go to cocoon phase. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm going to change something on this cocoon to match kind of the ideas of what we did on the last phase. I don't know how, biologically practical it is, but I had the little round sort of quote unquote eyes. I'm going to change it to the actual like almond shaped eyes. And maybe not as many of them. But this kind of hints as to what's coming in the adult phase. And if I saw something like that hanging from a tree, I would definitely start running in the opposite direction. So we have cocoon phase and then adult phase. Building on the idea of too many eyes, just far too many eyes for whatever it is we've drawn. We've created this sort of moth-like creature. The legs, I might have to, again, workshop and maybe come up with some different ideas for the legs. But for a rough prototype, I think that's functional. The main detail that you'll notice is the wings and the eyes on the wings. And I think, again, coloring probably be the most important thing to kind of work in on this one, the final form, because it's a bit of a departure as far as the base creature. I'd want to make sure and color it so that it's real clear that this thing is still based on Tenpo. Akong says, yeah, I see. Oh yeah, of course you see. Look at all the eyes. Too many eyes. Yeah, I think it's functional. This was Iconic's idea to start with like a caterpillar, and then I kind of ran with that idea to build out like the different phases. Again, not to scale. I think this one, the first one would be the smallest, then medium would be the cocoon, and the largest one would be the adult. I just crammed it into one canvas so I didn't have to hide layers. So that's interesting. Let's save our work. I'll call this one's number 4. Okay, let's take a look at the time. Let's do one more, maybe a single concept, and spend more time on fleshing that out before we call it a stream for today. I think we'll go a little over 2 hours, and then we should be good there. Let me hide this, and I'll add one more. So again, we started with, I'm not gonna go through them all again, just for people who've been here the whole time. We've done like a beast type design, we did a plant design, a fish design, a bug design. What's one more base idea for adapting Tenpo into some sort of creature concept? And then that'll be kind of how we close out. I'm trying to think as far as something that's going to be a departure from the other ones, but still be something we can turn into some sort of nightmare creature. Initially, I was thinking maybe like a dragon, but I don't know if that would be too close to the first one we did. Could do a bird. I'm terribly god-awful at drawing birds. That would be a very difficult exercise, I think. But we just did something that was flying, like a winged creature in the last one. And I was thinking alien too, but in his native form, Tenpo was an alien creature, so that'd be kind of redundant, even though I think we could do some interesting things with that. Like a deep space horror type thing. Maybe I will start sketching out some primaries, at least shapes, to kind of come up with a rough pose, and then I'll see what materializes from there. That's how I did the first one. The first one wasn't really done with any immediate end goal. It sort of materializes as I went. We could do like a bipedal type creature, still keeping with the idea of like some sort of monstrous creature, but instead of being like a quadruped creature, something more bipedal. That could be an idea. Let's scale this up a little bit. I think I'm going to run with this and see what we can kind of do to set this one apart from the first one. Maybe go large upper body. Yeah, okay. Kind of see roughly what we're looking at for a pose here. A big, like a hulking monstrosity. Oh, straight up forgot to draw part of the arm. Went straight from shoulder to forearm. That's not how arms work. And a bicep in there first. Okay, yeah, I think this base primary will work. Not the most out there kind of start to design, but it doesn't have to be. Okay, drop transparency down. Now we actually roughen the details. Might end up looking a little bit more golem-like now that I'm looking at it. Okay, let's kind of roughen the upper body. I think we can kind of flesh out the details and do things like add spikes and things coming out of the back and upper body to kind of capitalize on the sort of hook design that we're losing. Make sure that's still retained. This design's actually simpler than some of the other ones we've done. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It makes it a little bit easier to kind of play around with the details. I can shorten that up a little bit. I was trying to do kind of like these highlight marks around the eyes. I think it's a little distracting, so instead we do something like that to give them kind of more of a shape. Conic says, I like how this one is shaping up. Again, this one's not really that complicated, so we can kind of try and dress up the idea of this big, like, hulking creature once we have the shape sort of roughed in like this. And maybe we add kind of like this line texturing on the body. And kind of looking more golem-like, which is not a terrible idea. Something like a homunculus created through some sort of unholy or arcane practice to do the bidding of whatever has kind of called it into being. here's what I was talking about with trying to take the idea of the tail and work it into the body. Kind of veering into the Todd McFarlane creature design territory, which I don't know how I feel about. Wouldn't consider myself the biggest Todd McFarlane fan. I need to fix the lines here. Looks like he's wearing pants. That was not the intention. We could also put the same patterning on the limbs. Yeah, let's do that. Be consistent. I don't think these are eyes per se. These are probably more like some sort of glowing stones or gems or something that's going to resonate and glow. But unlike the other ones, again, thinking like a homunculus golem type of design as opposed to Lovecraftian, too many eyes everywhere. So we've done that. We've done that a few times already. And maybe we keep these sharp things on the forearms. Again, for the sake of consistency. I do the same down here. Kong says, gives me a tokusatsu guy in a monster suit vibe. I love. Yeah, I could definitely see that. Wasn't originally the intent when I started kind of mapping out the idea, but yeah, this is totally like a dude in a suit type of idea you could put for something like, you know, Kamen Rider or Power Rangers, something like that. All right, let's zoom out and take a look. Kong says, "Be right back. Gonna eat dinner." All right, enjoy your dinner. We'll be wrapping up shortly here, so in the event that I'm already offline by the time you get back, hope you have a good dinner, and thanks for tuning in and hanging out. I appreciate the suggestions and all of the comments and discussion. All right, let's hide the base pose primary here. That is, again, unexpected result. I was not kind of envisioning when I started sketching things out. But I could definitely see this coming into play for some sort of project in the future. I think all of them could. So let's do like a recap and a wrap up for the entire stream before we get ready to sign off. Kind of show what we've gone through today. Because unlike some of the other drawing streams, I feel like this creature study was fairly productive in the ideas we came up with, which is good. It means I haven't wasted my time and all of your time. So our first iteration of Tenpo, and I'm going to scale this one up. I think this one, that's probably more accurate for the size I'd want. Our first experimental design for a creature based on Tenpo was this quadrupedal, sort of feral looking monster design. Sort of spindly limbs. The hooked tail part has been repurposed into the spikes running along the back. And overall fairly simplistic, but I think it gets the job done. If this was colored accurately with the right paletting, it would definitely look like Tenpo. Our second one, a bit more of a departure as far as concepts go, a horror / Lovecraftian themed flower plant creature. We talked about the idea that the head up here, the main part, the eyes would be false eyes, and the actual optical organs would be on the petals of the flower, and that the root system would be meant to invoke the hooked tail theme from the original reference. And then the flowers like a bud around the base of the plant. This thing probably would be capable of either closing up the petals on the head or enclosing the entire body in this sort of bulb down here. That's the way I sort of envision that working out. Third, this might be my favorite of the ideas just because it was such a kind of wild departure from where we started. We have a deep sea horror themed version of Tenpo. This one takes a bunch of marine life concepts but sort of focuses on an anglerfish to create this multi-toothed nightmare fish. Yeah, I do like this one. I think if I would purpose anything into an immediate piece, it'd probably be this one first. I like the way this one turned out. Third up, we have life cycle of Tenpo as it relates to a caterpillar, stage 1 in the larval phase, a multi-eyed cocoon pupa phase, and then keeping the idea of a multiple-eyed horror creature with the final form of a moth or butterfly, or both. I think this one, again, pretty weird, which was sort of the point. I think this one also has a lot of potential to be used for something. And this one's number 5. I think I'll scale this one up a little bit too. This one potentially would be the largest by comparison from all the other ones. And so this one is a bipedal sort of hulking creature. And we end up kind of going down the route of like a homunculus or like a golem type creature with the texturing and the sort of gemstones or whatever's inset into the body here. We kept kind of a big heavy frame and added in spikes along the upper body and shoulders that are meant to invoke the idea of the tail. And so this one would be interesting to render from different angles, just to kind of experiment around with the ideas of what this thing looks like in different poses. It might have the most potential for doing something dynamic compared to the others, but I do like that it is a departure from the first four, but still retains a lot of the design elements that make it recognizable as Tenpo here, which is the point. And so I think that will be good for the session here. Again, the idea was to sketch out concepts that I can repurpose into something for upcoming projects. And I thought we'd get maybe 1 or 2 done, and we did 5. And that's partly thanks to the good ideas that came from chat. I like to kind of bounce things off of you folks, because a lot of times you think of stuff that I'm not readily considering whenever I'm doing this type of work. And so again, much appreciated. I think it's pretty interesting exercise in brainstorming and coming up with ideas. So let me see who is online to raid, and we'll make sure to spread the good chill vibes elsewhere. All right, I might need to go to the main page. I see Gutter Snipe is online. Gutter Snipe is a fellow artist. They are a pixel artist first and foremost, and they've done some really cool stuff. They're playing Pokemon, the card game, on Game Boy. Yeah, we can head over there. I haven't raided Gutter Snipe in a while. So let me go ahead and pause the BGM. I'll mute that, and we'll go to outro. So yeah, that will do it for today's drawing stream. Once again, thanks to everyone who came by and hung out. We will be back tomorrow, like I mentioned earlier. We'll be diving back into the breach, picking up where we left off. I'm going to show off some new things and stuff that I've learned, and we'll try and progress further and maybe even beat the game. And so that should be fun. Until then, hope everyone has a good rest of your evening. Now let's go see what Gutter Snipe is up to in Pokemon the card game.